Hey everyone, and welcome to Crime Family. I'm your host, Katie, and I'm here with my brother and sister, Lisa and AJ, who are my co hosts. And today and next week, we're diving into the story of a serial killer who managed to stay completely invisible and invisible not just to the public, but to law enforcement as well. And this serial killer, no one really knew existed until he was arrested in 2012. So even at the time of his arrest, police didn't realize what they had at the time. When he was taken into custody, investigators had no idea that they were actually dealing with a serial killer, and they weren't even aware of his crimes. He didn't fit the mold as he didn't leave behind patterns that connected his victims. So he wasn't like a showy serial killer where he'd do the same thing every time. So people knew exactly that it was the same killer every time. And I think he didn't do that, and that's what made him so dangerous. He said that he killed anybody, excluding children, is what he said. So male, female, young, old, didn't matter what nationality, what race. He didn't target a specific gender, like age group or lifestyle. His crimes were scattered across multiple states in the US, and they were sometimes separated by thousands of miles. He took deliberate, calculated steps to avoid detection, and he studied other serial killers closely, learning from their mistakes so he could refine his approach. And he designed his crimes that almost left nothing behind. Like, even his method or his MO wasn't consistent. There was no reliable MO for investigators to follow. There was no signature, no pattern that raised red flags, and law enforcement didn't even know that they were hunting a serial killer. If this doesn't sound familiar yet, I'm talking about the serial killer known as Israel Keys. AJ, you said that you never heard of him before, but Lisa, you know a little bit about him. So, yeah, this will be a new one for you, AJ, and I think probably some new info for you too, Lisa. So here we go. A lot of people have never heard of him, and I think that that's not an accident because the reason his name isn't out there or wasn't out there at the time is because that's kind of the way he wanted it. So he wasn't doing it for the infamy or the notoriety. Israel Keys didn't want fame. He didn't want his name remembered or repeated. And he just wanted to like kill and get away with it and then disappear back into normal life. And that's like one of the reasons why I wanted to cover his crimes. He didn't want his name out there. And so I feel like we should like be blasting his name out loud because like fuck you. um he didn't want his daughter to know what he had done, which I mean that's fair. Keep her out of it completely, but I don't think he deserves to have silence surrounding his name, especially when we get into some of the things that he has done. So, yeah, let's talk about him a lot against his wishes.
Yeah. And make sure to say his full name all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So, after his arrest, the FBI made a deal with him that if he cooperated and provided information about his crimes, then his identity would not be released to the media. And so that's why nobody knew about him. And the FBI kept this secret or kept this promise to him for an entire year, just
Like, can I
about.
just say something? Why does anyone keep a deal with a criminal? Like, just lie and then break the deal. I don't get it.
Yeah, this came up in like some of the research. It's like, why not just say stuff so that he says stuff to you and then be like, oh, actually, I was wrong. We're not going to do that. But yeah, that's not what they were like really, he really had this power over investigators to like get what he wanted because they really, really just wanted him to talk about his crimes. And I'll get into that, like how he kind of just the manipulation and just how fucking annoying he was. So during the time where his name wasn't released to the media and when he was in custody, investigators were still uncovering the scope of some of his crimes, and the public had no idea that any of it was happening. And this silence only ended after his death, which his death alone, his own death raises questions, which I'll get into later as well. But and of course, one of the most tragic consequences of his death is that many of his secrets died with him. There's still huge gaps in what the FBI knows. There's still victims who may never be identified and crimes that will never be fully understood just because he held all this information so close to him and just didn't tell anybody the full details. And so, because of that deal, Israel Keys remained largely unknown, even as investigators began to suspect he was responsible for multiple murders across the US. What little information did surface painted a deeply unsettling picture. Like I said, he didn't resemble the serial killers that we're used to talking about, and even seasoned investigators were left with more questions than answers. How many victims were there? Where are they? And how much of what Israel Keys said during his interrogations could even be trusted? So he did admit to a few things, but like, was that the actual truth? And much of what I'm covering right now is from a podcast called True Crime Bullshit, and it's hosted by Josh Hallmark. And this is a deep dive, and I'm not just talking about a few episodes. There are seasons about this guy. Like, I think they're on season 7, just like talking about Israel Keys. And like, it's crazy some of the stuff that that they get into. I haven't listened to it all yet because I could go on forever probably. Yeah, he works with the FBI and people who were directly involved in the case. So they do a deep dive. So if you want like a deep, exhaustive dive, start with season 1 of True Crime Bullshit. Okay, so now let's get into who Israel Keys actually was. So when he agreed to cooperate with investigators, they asked him which serial killers he identified with, and he named Ted Bundy. Of course, we all know who Ted Bundy is. And he said Ted Bundy because he was able to kind of live 2 separate lives and able to separate those aspects successfully in the beginning, his home life with his girlfriend and then his serial killer life. And he said he openly disliked BTK, the BTK killer. He called him a hag. And he said he was disappointed in BTK for seeking publicity, and that's what ultimately got him caught, was because he got cocky and then wanted the publicity behind it. So he thinks BTK was a hag.
Didn't Ted Bundy also?
I mean, yeah, I think he did in the end, right? Um, I don't know. I guess he just liked Ted Bundy for whatever reason.
I think the hag's the nicest thing you can say about BTK.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it is like a nicer thing that people have called BTK. So he talked about how BTK stopped killing for like 20 years and saying that to him that would be impossible. And yet, despite that belief, Israel Keys was really patient. He didn't really lose control until the end, and he planned his crimes meticulously, sometimes years in advance. He didn't hunt in the traditional sense. Like, he waited and he just let victims come to him. So he never like scoped out a specific person or stalked them. He just kind of like set up the situation and then waited for an unsuspecting victim just kind of like cross his path. And one of the most chilling things about Israel Keys was his preparation. So he buried kill kits all across the country so he wouldn't have to transport weapons or tools. And so they would just be there waiting for him. So he would bury them and he would like scout out a place. He knew that this was a good isolated spot that he wanted to kill somebody, and he would just bury all of his equipment so that he could come back to it without having to carry it all with him. And one of those kits was discovered in New York. It was stored in a watertight bucket, and inside was a 22 caliber without a stock, ammunition, magazines, and a silencer. And other kits reported containing cash and items used to dispose of a body. I don't know, it's just like scary that he would think this far in advance and be that prepared.
And the fact you could find them again. I mean, I can't even find my way to a new store.
It's just like buried in the ground for when he needed it, like all this crap. Yeah, so like I said, his goal was always to be prepared and be undetectable. And he usually picked very remote places. He would always pay in cash. And he would fly hundreds of miles away from where he actually planned to kill. And then he would drive the rest of the way so that his name could never really be tied to like the place or a time of a crime scene. So he would like fly to a city and then drive like 500 miles in the other direction, and that's where he'd commit the crime. And so even if there was record of a plane ticket, it would be so far away, the crime, that it was hard for people to like ever really match up where he actually was. He was very patient between murders, and the urge to kill, I guess, built up. You know, you often hear how serial killers have the need or that urge And he said to like satisfy that, he often burglarized homes, he set fires, and he robbed banks, which is crazy. There's a picture of him, that surveillance camera. His face is covered, but they later discover that it's him, just like with a gun in a bank. And some of the kill kits that he had stashed he said contained money, cash from those bank robberies. So the reason he was caught was because he did eventually stray away from all these actions and he got sloppy. So here's one audio of him in the interview room talking about some of the things that I mentioned, like some of his MO, I guess, even though he kind of had a lack of MO. So yeah, we'll listen to like clip 1.
Well, back when I was smart, I would do it. I would let them come to me.
I don't understand.
Just remote area. You know, not.
Kind of
You
like
go to a remote area that's not anywhere near where you live, but that other people go to as well. You might not get exactly what there's not as much to choose from in a manner of speaking, but there's also no witnesses really. There's nobody else around, so. And then when they disappear, a lot of times nobody's really surprised because it happens all the time.
But what I'm trying to figure out, but if somebody's camping in a remote spot, someone's going to know that they didn't come home.
Right.
So did you have other things you looked for in a victim?
No, it was, it's just. You asking what type of people I would pick, or?
Yeah, what type, or whether there was a way.
I didn't really have a type.
Okay.
I had preference, but that it wasn't.
What's the preference?
Well, lightweight.
Is that because of attraction or because of disposal?
Yeah, it's kind of makes it easier,
Okay.
but it's not. It's not a deal breaker.
So yeah. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, he sounds like just the way he's like, obviously, I mean, this is probably true of all serial killers, like just so calm when he's talking about it, like so nonchalant, like, yep, that's what I do, like just like an average everyday person, just talking. He's almost talking about it as if it's like describing like what he had for lunch or something. So I don't know. It's creepy. Also, I was wondering who was laughing, and I was like, was that the was that him laughing at one point, or was that
Yeah, that's
the
him. Yeah,
investigator? Okay,
that's
because I
him.
was like, I'm hoping that's him, because like he said something and then it didn't really sound like it could have been the same person's laugh. I was like, why is the investigator like cracking up laughing at one point? But so that was him. Okay. Um, yeah, I don't know, just
Yeah,
creepy.
that's one
Just
thing.
creepy.
His laugh really bothers me. Like throughout all these interviews, you can listen to him, and he always has that like laugh of when he says certain things, and it's just like ew. And like yeah, because he is so
Loser.
nonchalant about it. It's just like him talking about like a normal thing that happened in the day. So yeah, pretty gross. So one of the other things that made Keyes so undetectable for so long was that no one could ever find the bodies of most of his victims, and he led the FBI to one of them, and that's why they found it. And another was found, another one that they believed to be one of his victims, but that death was ruled accidental until they were able to later to possibly tie it to Keyes. But no other bodies have ever been found, and he's estimated to have been killing for about 10 years, which is crazy. And his victims were both male and female, and they range from teenagers to the elderly. And FBI believes that he is responsible for at least 11 murders across multiple states. Although that number has been questioned, they don't know for sure. It could be more, could be less. Like I said, they don't really know. And he describes crossing multiple states during his murders, and it's believed He could have abducted someone from one state, murdered them in another, and then disposed of the body in a third state. So again, it was this idea of making himself hard to trace, because a lot of times, investigators don't go across state lines when they're looking for, when they find a murder victim, or if someone's been murdered, they're not going to go across state lines. I guess that's why the FBI is involved, but yeah, it just makes it harder for him to be tracked. Despite his meticulous and careful planning, Israel Keyes finally did make a mistake, and this mistake was abducting someone close to his own home. So on February 1st, 2012, Israel Keyes broke his most important rule, and he abducted someone just 4 miles from his home in Anchorage, Alaska. And so, you think of Alaska, it's remote, but where he abducted this person from was not remote. It wasn't really isolated. It was a populated area, and there was other people around. And when people talk about Israel Keyes, like, this is often where they start, because we know the most about this murder, and this was his last murder, but we're going to start here too. And we're going to talk about the abduction and murder of 18-year-old Samantha Koenig, who lived in Anchorage, Alaska. Alaska's a large state. It's like the largest in the US, but despite its massive size, it's one of the least populated states. Where this abduction took place, it was night, it was cold, and it was dark. And so when you think of like just a cold, dark place, it's almost scarier, because if you're being abducted, you can't really run into the darkness, because then you're just gonna like die and freeze to death anyway. So it's kind of like you are at the mercy of this person, because if you get lost in the cold, you're not gonna be very well off anyway. So I don't know, it just kind of like seems scarier to me. So Samantha Koenig was a senior at West Anchorage High School, and she didn't have the best relationship with her mother, and she struggled with substance abuse. But those challenges didn't define her. She was resilient, hardworking, and deeply compassionate. And after graduating, she planned to become a nurse. And so, yeah, she was a typical teenager. She had dreams, and they were all stolen from her. Samantha had recently started working evenings at a small coffee stand called Common Grounds. And it was this tiny little teal-colored kiosk just off Tudor Road in Anchorage. It was barely a 9 by 5 foot little stand, and it was a popular spot for locals to stop and grab coffee. And this wasn't like a store where you'd go in and where you'd walk in the door to get your coffee. It was more like a drive-through or a walk up to a window, or kind of like a food truck style thing. And so the worker would be inside by themselves, and they would pass out drinks through the window. And yeah, Samantha had just started working as a barista at Common Grounds in January of 2012. And she was working alone on the evening of February 1st, 2012. And when her shift was supposed to be over, her boyfriend, who we're going to call Zach, I know some places they don't say his actual name, so I don't know why, but I'm not going to either, just in case you're not supposed to, but we'll call him Zach. And he arrived to pick her up around 8:30, but he found that the stand was closed. Samantha was gone and all the lights were off. And Zach tried multiple times to get a hold of Samantha by calling and texting her cell phone, but there was no response. So he heads back home and waits with her father, James, for her to get back home or reach out to them. At 11:24 p.m., Zach receives a text from Samantha's phone, and it says, "F you, asshole. I know what you did. I'm going to spend a couple of days with friends. Need time to think. Plan acting weird. Let my dad know." And then 30 minutes later, another message comes through, and it just says, "F you." So Zach and James felt that the way the messages were worded or something about them just didn't feel right. They just felt off, like they weren't from Samantha. But there was really nothing they could do. There was no reason to freak out immediately, I guess, because there are reports that Zach and Samantha had been arguing that day. And so it wasn't widely unbelievable that she was just still angry and actually did go to a friend's house to cool off rather than wanting to go home and have to spend time with him if she was mad. And so they waited all night for more communication from Samantha, but when they didn't hear anything, they reached out to Samantha's boss at Common Grounds. And so Samantha's boss hadn't heard anything either, but he reviewed the surveillance footage, and what he found was horrifying. Samantha has been abducted, and it has all been caught on camera. And so there's footage of this abduction, and we're not going to show it all. It's like 11 minutes. We'll put the link in the show notes so you can watch it as well. We all have watched it. So I'm just going to like kind of describe what is going on in this video. And so Samantha can be seen in the little kiosk that is the coffee shop, and she's working and she's waiting on a customer that comes to the window in a ski mask. You can't tell that it's a ski mask, but we find out later that he has a ski mask on. And remember, this is Alaska in the winter, so it wouldn't be alarming or weird to see people walking around in like a full ski mask, I guess. And so then you can see it's almost like the person outside is like asking about something behind her, because Samantha turns her head to look at something. And then when she turns back around, you can see that she's kind of startled and she puts her hands up. And of course, we all assume, and I think it comes out later, that this person at the window is pointing a gun at her. And then the lights go out, and she starts removing cash from the cash register. So it looks like a robbery at this point. And then minutes pass, and you can't really tell what's going on since the lights are off. It looks like Samantha is kind of crouched near the window, and the masked man just kind of like lingers by the window. A car pulls out into the parking lot. You can see people get out of the vehicle. They're kind of moving around nearby, but they obviously don't see or notice anything suspicious because they just get back in the car and drive away. And then suddenly, after the car leaves, the masked man like launches himself through the window. And it's so creepy. It's like truly the stuff of nightmares. And of course, now we all know that this man is Israel Keys. And we know that once he gets inside, he zip ties Samantha's hands and he forces her into his vehicle. After watching this footage, what are your guys' like impressions? What do you think?
Terrifying.
It's terrifying.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's terrifying. I don't know if I've ever seen like something like that, like a real life thing like
Kidnapping
that.
taking place, like
Yeah.
I know,
Like
it's
obviously like you
rare.
see in movies, like how like a kidnapping would happen, but I don't think I've ever seen like real footage of a kidnapping happening.
yeah.
Um,
hmm
so I found well, first of all, like we've edited like Katie said, we watched it here, but we edited that out because it would just been silent. But I spent half the video trying to figure out where the camera angles were and what was happening, because you can't really see clearly until you know. Like Katie will tell you, I spent the first 5 minutes looking at the wrong camera, expecting something on one camera, and then I missed actually what was happening. Yeah, I find it really crazy that like there's that car that pulls up and there's people coming out and they don't see anything. But I think that particular camera that is showing that car must be at the back, because all that stuff's happening at the front, like with the window and all that. Is my guess. But
Yeah. It's weird that there's no camera actually like showing the window where this guy or where Israel is. You can just kind of see
Mhm.
inside what's happening inside. And then like the back door where they're
Yeah,
eventually you can see them like leaving.
yeah, like you see, like the person, him coming up, going to the window, which isn't on camera, and then you see all the stuff happening inside, and then you see them leaving from that other camera again, but you never really see. I mean, I guess when he's walking her out, you see like, but the lighting's really bad. You can tell what's happening, but it's not clear, right? I wonder if he knew that there was no camera at the window. And also, this seems really brazen. Like, why? When watching it, I was wondering, why wouldn't he just wait until she got into her car? Or was somebody coming to pick her up?
Yeah, her boyfriend was coming to pick her up. She didn't have a car there because someone
Oh,
was coming to pick her up. But it's not like he
okay.
knew that, right? Like he
I
didn't
just
like
feel
Yeah,
like
know her. He didn't stalk her or anything. It is very
he
brazen.
probably just drove by. He probably just drove by and saw a girl working by herself, and then just looked back around and took his chance. But I feel like they walked towards a bunch of cars. Like, no, like she zip tied. I mean, I don't know. It's just crazy. Like no one was. I mean, I would have screamed at the top of my lungs, but that's just me. I don't know. It's weird. Like it was. They walked towards like a parking lot full of cars.
yeah,
Yeah, and we'll talk about
yeah,
this. Like Israel talks about this himself in one of his interviews. So yeah, we'll kind of get into what is happening as he's walking her to his car. So yeah, of course, after watching this footage, Samantha's boss contacts the police right away, who get the FBI involved right from the beginning, and an investigation is started. So I'm jumping around a little bit to try and keep things in chronological order of how they actually happened and like not necessarily in order of how the police figured stuff out. So just for like the sake of how I'm telling the story, it's like the police don't know everything at the same time that I'm telling it here. But yeah. So once Keyes is found out and arrested, during his interrogations, more details begin to surface about what happened to Samantha after she's abducted. And it becomes clear, yeah, just like we were saying, just how brazen he actually had become and how confident he was in his ability to avoid being caught. So from the very beginning, Keyes had planned to send text messages to Samantha's family from her phone. And that's why, after abducting her, he actually had to return to the coffee stand later that night to retrieve her cell phone because Samantha had left it in there. And once he realized that, he went back, broke into the coffee shop, and got her phone. But Samantha even told him that the door was armed and that the alarm would go off. But Israel had a police scanner, and so he would hear if any calls were being made to that location, which I think kind of added to his confidence. And there actually wasn't an alarm that went off, and so he was able to get into the coffee shop and get her phone without any issues, which is like crazy to go back to the scene of the crime just to get her phone.
It's crazy that he would even go get the phone, keep the phone there, and then you can't find out where she's. It won't trade. Like, why go back to the phone?
Yeah, that's
Keep it
what I
there.
don't understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he had planned to send those text messages so that there wouldn't be so much suspicion. It's like she didn't come home, but like he's going to
But
send messages as to why, just so he give himself more time, I guess.
yeah, because when you were telling that part, I was thinking like we've seen that in other cases too, where like the person will send like text messages pretending to be that person, and in almost every single one of those, the people receiving it are always like, "That doesn't sound like her," or "That doesn't sound like them." Like I feel like that leaves more red flags. Like they're gonna find out eventually. So I don't know. It's like just such a big risk to take the phone and have that like potentially track, because then they'll be able to find out where you sent the text, like where like the pings, right? Like whereas if you just leave it in the thing, it's much harder. Like, they're going to know that
Yeah.
she's not answering, and they might be aware that she's missing earlier, but you're leaving less of a trail for when they eventually do find it out. I don't know.
I'm just
Seems really
surprised that
I
weird.
know.
he didn't send those he didn't send those texts while he was there before they left or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Yeah, the whole thing's crazy. Samantha's boyfriend later revealed that on the night of her disappearance, around 3 a.m., he caught a man in a ski mask rifling through their car, which was parked outside of their house. And so he goes outside and he's like, "Can I help you?" before like running back into the house. And later he discovered that Samantha's ID and her debit card were missing from the car. And he didn't report this encounter to police until later in the investigation. And this would have been before the footage of her abduction was seen. And of course, his decision not to report this has been criticized. Many people thought it was suspicious at first because even if you didn't think those two incidences were connected, like her not coming home and then some guy rifling through her car, why not just call the police about the potential like car robbery and then like also bring up the fact that Samantha didn't come home?
Yeah, even if she wasn't missing, like someone robbed you, I think I would call the police.
Yeah. Also, at the
Yeah,
very
I know.
least, someone's robbing you. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's weird.
Yeah, a lot of people say like why not just report, if you're not going to report her missing, why not report this car robbery? Like it seems weird. And then of course it comes up like maybe it has something to do with like the people that Samantha allegedly had in her life. So as the investigation continued, more information came to light. Samantha and her friend group were involved in the local drug scene, and some people she knew had been known to rob drug dealers. And Samantha had also filed a restraining order against an acquaintance for harassment a few months before her disappearance. And so there's also rumors that Samantha's father was heavily involved in the local drug scene as well, though that it's unclear whether that's actually ever been verified. And so if this is true, like maybe her boyfriend didn't want to get the police involved because of like their drug activity, which I guess sort of makes sense. But there was also suspicion surrounding like Samantha's boyfriend, Zach. He had told investigators that his and Samantha's relationship was doing well, and that although they had gone through a rough patch, they had made up. However, investigators later found text messages showing that they had actually been arguing back and forth all day, the day she went missing, as I had mentioned before. And so, needless to say, like early on in the investigation, there was many potential suspects. And also, needless to say, that the man in the ski mask rifling through the car was Israel Keys. He wanted Samantha's ID and debit card, which he did find and kept with him. So, like, again, crazy that he was brazen enough to not only kidnap her in this populated place, but to go back and steal her phone and then go back to her house and rifle through her car to look for her ID. Like, it's just crazy.
And like
And
it's like the people have watched him leave with her. That someone watched him rifle. Like he was in. People have seen him do these things. You know what I mean? Like,
but yeah,
it's crazy.
yeah,
They
people would have
watched him
saw
in
them walking
action.
together. Yeah. Crazy. They didn't know what was happening at the time. Of course, even though all this has happened, police are investigating and questioning Zach and James and others in Samantha's life. And so 23 days after her abduction, on February 24th, Zach received a text from Samantha, or at least from Samantha's phone, that read, "Connor Park sign under pic of Albert. Ain't she purty?" And this
Wait, so
led
how many days later was this?
23 days later. So, like 3 weeks after her abduction, they get this text message from Samantha's phone. And this message led investigators to Connor Park, where they found what would ultimately like break this case open. It was a plastic bag containing a note and a photo. And the note was a ransom demand for $30,000 to be deposited into Samantha's bank account. And it read, "I may not use the card much in AK due to the small pop, but I'm leaving soon, so I'll be using it all over. She almost got away twice, once on Tudor and once in the desert. I must be losing my touch." So the photo that was included was of Samantha holding up the front page of the Anchorage Daily News. This was dated February 13th. And so, yeah, just remember February 13th, because this date will come up again and it'll be important to the timeline here. So that letter that they found was actually typed on a typewriter. And experts, of course, they attempted to determine what type of typewriter it could have come from. They analyzed it for DNA and fingerprints. Didn't really find anything that could lead to anybody. And investigators worked with Samantha's dad to deposit that $30,000 into Samantha's account. And they did this so that they could kind of track the transactions to see where it was being used, and kind of track, obviously, who was using her debit card, if it was Samantha or
I mean,
somebody
he's
else.
an idiot. Cash is. I mean, why would he use a bank card?
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
so
This is
traceable.
like ultimately what led to his downfall, was him like straying from what he usually had done. But yeah, I think he had become so confident because he'd never been caught or like even suspected before that, oh, I can do whatever I want, really. On February 29th, just a few miles from where Samantha was abducted, there was a hit on Samantha's bank account as someone withdrew money from her account. And then about an hour later, there was another hit at a different bank, and then a third withdrawal roughly 30 minutes after that. And when surveillance footage from the ATMs was reviewed, police saw a white man wearing a ski mask using the drive-through ATM, and they were also able to identify the make and model of the vehicle. And of course, they began tracking it, putting out like a bolo for this vehicle. So a week later, on March 7th, another withdrawal was made from Samantha's account in Wilcox, Arizona. And local police arrived just minutes after Keys had left, and they pulled the surveillance footage showing a masked man again, wearing a gray hoodie, glasses, and white sneakers. And this time he was driving a different vehicle. And about 80 miles away in New Mexico, another withdrawal occurred, and again, police arrived shortly after he had left. This time, investigators contacted the DEA, so the Drug Enforcement Administration, for assistance, and they were able to pull footage from along Interstate 10 and were able to determine that the vehicle was a rental, and as it had a logo in the window for a rent-a-car company. And they requested records for the rental agreement to see who had recently rented a vehicle matching that description from that company. And so they were able to kind of narrow down this car to a couple of suspects. 900 miles away, another withdrawal was made the following day in Texas, followed by another withdrawal in a different Texas City a few days later. And so, again, a BOLO was issued for this vehicle across Texas and neighboring states. And there was eventually a hit on this vehicle in Lufkin, Texas. Police staked out a motel that they believed the suspect was staying in, and they followed the car as it pulled out and drove away. And this car was pulled over for speeding, actually. So this was kind of like their excuse to pull this car over because they weren't sure if this was who they were looking for. It was just this vehicle matched the description. And when asked for identification, the man handed over his driver's license. It had his real name, Israel Keys, and he told officers that he was traveling for his sister's wedding. From my understanding, the police didn't know exactly who they were looking for. Like I said, they knew that they were looking for a white man driving this similar car, this rent-a-car. And when they saw him and saw his name, they didn't even know if it was the right guy. So seeing Israel Keys wasn't like a red flag for them. They were just like that, tracking the vehicle. And they also know that they were looking for a man from Alaska. And so when they pulled Keys over, they saw his license. They saw that he was from Alaska. They kind of like, their senses were tingling. And as agents questioned him, they noticed that he became increasingly nervous and agitated. He had refused to allow them to search his wallet, and he began sweating profusely, and he grew more and more uncooperative as more questions were being asked. So there is reporting that suggests that Israel's agitation may not have been because he was caught, but because he had placed his gun in the trunk of his car and he didn't actually have it on him, because he later admitted that if he was ever caught, he planned to not go down without a fight, suggesting that he may have intended to either shoot his way out or be killed rather than face consequences. And so he was kind of agitated because he didn't have his gun on him and didn't have a chance to get it while the police were surrounding him. And so inside his vehicle, police found 2 cell phones, women's clothing, and what would ultimately seal his fate was Samantha's ATM card and her driver's license. And one of the phones that they found, they later found out was Samantha's. So, of course, they're like, yeah, we got him. After his arrest, during interviews, Keys spoke out about what happened to Samantha. And so this is going to go into kind of that night and what happened. He said that she fought back and almost got away before he managed to get her into his vehicle. So if you watch that surveillance video, like closely, the top left corner frame, it does kind of look like you can see somebody running and then somebody else running after them. I had to go back and like watch it again, and I was like, holy shit. Like,
That is
he said Keys
crazy.
did escape. Yeah. Keys said that Samantha did escape briefly and they had to tackle her before leading her to his truck on the other side of the street. So, it's like just eerie to see.
And like cars everywhere going about their daily night. Like, it's crazy.
I know. It's like, just like knowing that, like that happened, you can possibly see it in the footage, just like kind of makes this more haunting. She did attempt to escape, and realizing that if she had gotten away, that like her life would have been saved. And so in that same video, you can see that there's visible activity in the parking lot. Like we were saying, you can see like cars driving by. And Israel even admitted that people were nearby as he was forcing Samantha into his truck. And when they got close, he would just kind of shove the gun he had harder into Samantha to keep her from saying anything. It was kind of like hidden, but she knew it was there. And it was kind of like his threat to be like, if you try anything, I just have this gun on you. So once inside the truck, he zip tied her hands to the passenger seat, and he drove around because he was waiting for his girlfriend and his daughter to go to sleep, who both lived with him at this time at his house. And so when he figured it was late enough, he brought Samantha to his home and he took her to his shed out in his yard. And like I mentioned before, Keys was meticulous and was always prepared, and this was no exception. This was not a spur-of-the-moment crime. He had prepared the shed the night before, planning to bring someone there. So inside there were tarps, there was a space heater, ropes, blankets, tools, and a radio. And he said that over the course of several hours, he kind of sat with Samantha in the shed. He drank some wine, and they were just like talking. He was just like talking to Samantha. And he says that he knew from the minute that he had her that it would not end well for her. And he raped her and strangled her to death, and then wrapped her body in a tarp and stored it in a cabin inside the shed. And after he did all this, he went to, and that's when after he did that, he went to Samantha's house, broke into her car and stole her ID. He returned home, took a shower, and he woke up his family because they were heading to Houston to catch a flight for a 16-day Caribbean cruise. And when he returned from that cruise, it was February 18th. So remember I mentioned that photo of Samantha holding the newspaper, which was dated February 13th? So how could that be if she was killed the night that she was abducted? So there is a photo that you can find on the internet of Samantha.
It's terrifying.
She's already
I came
already
across it
dead.
by accident.
Yeah. So
It's terrifying.
well, okay, so she's already dead in the photo, and she's holding up that ransom note, and Keyes like described in disturbing detail how he made her appear alive. She had been frozen because she was out in the shed for 2 weeks, so he thawed her body and he applied makeup to her. He sewed her eyes open and he braided her hair. And his confession can be found online. It's extremely graphic, so I'm not going to play it, but
Like that photo when I first saw it years ago, it was like I watched a scary movie. It terrified me for weeks. I slept with the light on. Like that's like her face in that. It was just terrifying.
yeah, it is terrifying. But the thing about this, like, there's reports that this photo is actually fake, and I did find like reports that it actually is true. This isn't the actual photo. It was recreated by some documentary, and this is kind of the photo that's out there that people think is of Samantha, but I don't think that's actually the real photo. He did take a photo of Samantha when she was already deceased and did attach it to the note. Like, that part is real, but the actual photo has never been released. So I guess I feel kind of better knowing that's not actually the photo. It's not actually her dead.
Oh, okay. That makes me feel better. Okay.
Yeah. It's like
Still terrifying.
terrifying that it is a real thing that actually happened, but that photo is not it. Kind of after he did all this, he dismembered her body, and then he went ice fishing where he disposed of her remains, and he stripped the shed, cleaned it with bleach, and then he burned everything except her debit card and ID, and some reports say he even kept a braid of her hair. He then began withdrawing money from her account, and he was actually traveling to Texas for a wedding. And so as he made his way down there, he was actively tracked by police, and he was getting money from Samantha's ATM the whole time. And this whole time, like, he had his 10-year-old daughter with him for much of the trip. And so she was often in the car while he was using Samantha's ATM at the bank. Like, thankfully, his
But wouldn't
daughter
he know
wasn't in the
that? Like, he's someone smart enough to have eluded the police all these years. Like, it just seems like he just stopped caring. Like, did he
That's
want to
what's
get
so
caught? Because,
interesting.
like, I
This
don't
is so
get it.
interesting about this case. It's like the very last crime is so different than how he operated. Like it's like two different people almost.
Yeah,
So
I
he must have
know.
just stopped caring about getting caught. Like, maybe he
I
just.
think he just got like so cocky and just like so arrogant that he thought he got away with it for so long that it didn't really matter what he did. He was still going to get away with it. And he felt like he didn't really leave a trace other than him being tracked this entire time. But I guess he didn't really, I don't know, he didn't think about it.
And like
Yeah,
but the reason you didn't get caught all those times before was because you were so careful with all those things. Like the minute you
I know.
stop being careful, you're gonna get caught. Like, just, guy sounds like an idiot. Well, I mean, clearly he's an idiot, but well, not as smart as he
Yeah,
thought he was.
I know. It's crazy. Like, yeah, if he didn't make that mistake of like using her ATM card across the country, then he might not have gotten caught, which is crazy. Yeah, but thankfully his daughter wasn't in the car when he was finally arrested on March 13th, 2012. And so there actually is like dash cam footage of his arrest. It shows from the initial stop where he was pulled over to him being questioned, and it shows his refusal to let them search his car without a search warrant. And it shows the officers finding a gray hoodie, glasses, and a mask, and white tennis shoes that match the ones found in the ATM, or the ones seen in the ATM footage. And you can even watch the moment when they realize that they've got him, and they say, "We got our guy," and then they take him into custody. So it's kind of thrilling to watch his downfall there. You can find that on YouTube. We can link that in the show notes as well. So when authorities finally arrest Israel Keyes on March 13th, 2012, for using Samantha's debit card and potential kidnapping. They had enough evidence to detain him, but at this time they didn't have an explanation of what happened to her. So of course this confession and everything comes later, but at this point when he's arrested, they don't know that she's dead. And once in custody and as part of negotiations with investigators, Keyes does acknowledge that he murdered Samantha, and he directed police to the location of her remains in the frozen lake outside of Anchorage, where her body was recovered piece by piece. And so this is like I said, one of the only bodies that they ever found of any of Keyes's victims. Investigators were left to confront a grim reality. Keyes had planned and executed this abduction without any prior connection to Samantha. She was a stranger that he chose because of convenience and opportunity. And it wasn't until roughly the third FBI interview that investigators realized what they were dealing with. And they didn't just have a murderer, they had a serial killer. And so the abduction and murder of Samantha Koenig was tragic and senseless, but it exposed the hidden scope of Keyes' violence. It's the case that ultimately led to his arrest and to the only confirmed victim that we have physical evidence of. But Samantha's story is only the beginning of what authorities hoped would become a series of answers to other cold cases, answers that Keyes would reluctantly start to reveal in conversations with the FBI. This is where our story continues in the next episode. So yeah, just kind of getting started here on the story of Israel Keyes. So any last comments before we wrap up for today?
I just want to say, the fact that he admitted right away and led them right to the body, you don't see that often. That's like he didn't deny it. You know what I mean? This, I did kill her. This is where the body is. Usually it's, you have to make, you don't see that a lot of serial killers, He's very different in a lot of ways of the serial killers.
Yeah, maybe he just realized. Do you think he realized, well, there's no way I can deny this. It's clearly him because of the tracking and the
Also,
video.
the kill kits, you don't, I don't think that's ever been, that's never been, maybe people done it before, but it's the first time. It's just crazy that he is the first serial killer we know of that has thought of that,
I know. That's the first time I've ever heard of it. I've never heard of another one.
Yeah.
Apparently some of them are just, they haven't found all of them. There could still be some just sitting out there randomly, so people could just come across them.
It was just so, crazy.
Yeah, it just kind of seems totally night and day of someone who's that meticulous and is, so prepared and does all this stuff to prevent detection. Yeah, like Lisa said earlier, it seems like a completely different person who did this last one.
And cockiness will get you every time.
Yeah.
I know.
Everyone.
And I think that I was going to say earlier, they always say, they will slip up. You give them time, they will. And it usually always happens.
Oh, yeah.
Eventually.
I know.
Always.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. If he didn't ask for that money and start using her ATM, like we said, he never would have been caught. He could have just disposed of her body in that lake, and then that would have been the end. They would have never found her. She would have been another missing person, and he would just be going on with his life. So it's crazy.
So all of that just to get the what was it, 30,000?
Yeah.
Did he what was his job? Did he have a job that he was working? I'm assuming. I guess he just wanted an extra 30K, but he must have had money.
I mean, yeah, he wasn't wealthy by any means. I think he owned his own contracting business or something. He was a contractor, construction. So, yeah.
Crazy.
But he also lived with a girlfriend who had a good paying job as well. So, yeah, he wasn't hurting for money as far as I know. So, yeah, it was just the thrill of it, I guess. I don't know. Crazy.
And also because the 30,000, it's not that much money, right? If you're in that position, you could ask for a lot more.
It's why not make her take it out herself, cash, and then you wouldn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's just odd that you would
maybe because she had already tried to escape once, and he was afraid that she would do that again if he let her do anything.
Yeah, I guess, but it just,
I don't know.
The debit. I would not be using a debit card of anyone that I've abducted.
I know. yeah, maybe he didn't realize that you could track people like that. Like he probably didn't know, or maybe he did. I don't know. Seems kind of crazy. But yeah, there's you can like listen to almost all of his interrogations. There's like over 30 hours of him being interviewed that you can listen to on YouTube. And he goes into detail about some of the things that he did, and like him and Samantha were like driving around and like they were just like talking. He's like, yeah, I knew she was trying to like come friendly with me so that it would be more personable. But he's like, I knew from the second that I had her that she didn't have a chance. Anyway, yeah, it's scary. But yeah,
Crazy.
so we will continue on next week with more about Israel Keys. So that's it for today.
All right, so that does it for this week's episode. We hope you enjoyed listening to our conversation about this crazy case. I'm kind of like, I need to know more now. I'm like waiting for the next part. But if you want to follow us, you can follow us on all the social medias, Crime Family Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and you can email us, crimefamilypodcast@gmail.com, if you have any case suggestions or feedback on the show or anything like that, you can definitely let us know. You can also follow us on YouTube. Just type in Crime Family Podcast will pop up. You can watch all the video versions of these episodes on YouTube as well as on Spotify. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, it's just the audio version there. But if you want video, there is a way to get that. Just go to YouTube. So yeah, that's it for this week. We will be back next week with part 2 of the Israel Keys case. And until then, take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.